Greetings adventurers, I am Damian Rios and welcome to this video tutorial on how to make a D&D character. Whether you're a seasoned player or new to the game, creating a character is a crucial and exciting step in your D&D journey. In this tutorial, I'll guide you through the process of building a character using a character sheet. We'll cover everything from choosing a race and class to selecting abilities, skills, and equipment. So grab your dice and let's get started on this epic quest of character creation. Before we begin, let's take a look at the character sheet. For the sake of this video, I'm using the official character sheet provided by the Player's Handbook. But note that a character sheet does not need to look like this. You could use a notebook, a Word document, or my personal favorite, an Excel or Google sheet where you can plug in your own formulas. So up here we have where your class, level, your player name, and background is gonna go. Over here is where you'll put your character's name. This section is about ability, skills, and modifiers. Up here is the combat section. Over here is what your character is like, their personality, flaws, and things like that. Over here is where you'll put your weapons and spells, spellcasting abilities. Over here you'll put what you're proficient in or what you're trained in. Here you'll put your equipment, and here is where you put your special features that you get from your class and race. Now that we have our character sheet, let's get started. The first step is deciding what type of character we want to play. For this video, I want to create a strong and mighty, but somewhat dumb character that smashes first and asks questions later. So let's take a look at the classes. There are 12 classes available to choose from in the Player's Handbook. I will provide a link for more detailed information below this video. For our character, however, I think the Barbarian class would be perfect. Barbarians are described as fierce, raging warriors defined by their unbridled fury. Their rage is a power that fuels a battle frenzy and gives them uncanny reflexes, resilience, and feats of strength, which is good for smashing first and asking questions later. Now that we have our class, let's add it to the sheet. So we'll put the Barbarian class right here. We're also going to be making a level 1 character, so we can put that there. While we're up here, we can also put our player name. And we're going to be starting with 0 experience points. For being Barbarian, we get a few of the following benefits. First off, we get some proficiencies, and we'll write those in the proficiency section here. First, we're proficient in light armor, medium armor, and shields. So let's write that down. And then we're also proficient in simple weapons and martial weapons. So we can add those too. This means we can use these items without having to suffer any of the effects for not being proficient in. It basically means we have a special training in him. We also get a starting equipment from the barbarian class. So we can either start with a great axe or any martial melee weapon. I think for us, I'm gonna start with a great axe. So I'll put that in the equipment section here. And then we also start with either 2 hand axes or any simple weapon. I'm gonna go with the 2 hand axes. And then we also start with an explorer's pack and 4 javelins. All right. Along with starting equipment and proficiency, we also get 2 starting features. So at level 1, barbarians get the rage feature. And for features, and we'll put that over here. And usually you want to write out what the feature does, because you'll be referring to that a lot during combat and playing the game. For the sake of today, I'll just write it down, the name here, and then just tell you what it does. So rage, when you're in battle, you fight with primal ferocity. On your turn, you can enter a rage as a bonus action. And then while raging, you gain the following benefits if you aren't wearing heavy armor. First, you have advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws. When you make a melee weapon attack using strength, you get bonus damage to the damage roll. And that increases as you level up as a barbarian. And then you also get resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage that you receive. The rage lasts for 1 minute, and it ends early if you're knocked unconscious, or if your turn ends and you haven't attacked a hostile creature since your last turn, or taken damage since then. And then you can also just end your rage on your turn as a bonus action. And you can't rage every combat. There's a limit, which increases as you level up. The limit for level 1 is 2 before you have to take a long rest and replenish those rages. And then the last feature we get for being barbarian at level 1 is unarmored defense. And unarmored defense is while you're not wearing any armor, your armor class or AC equals 10 plus your dexterity modifier plus your constitution modifier. And then we can still use shields and gain this benefit. We'll go more over that when we get to the combat section up here with armor class. But for right now, that's all we get for being barbarian. Alright, so far we've added our class, level, name, experience points, some of our proficiencies, some of our starting equipment, and some of our abilities. Now we can pick our race. To keep it simple, we will choose from the 9 races provided in the player's handbook. But note that there are much more races from other D&D books, guides, and homebrews that you could choose from. And along with the classes, I will provide a link down below with more information. Okay. For our character, I will choose half orc as the race. I think this would be a good fit because it gets a bonus in strength and constitution, which will increase our health. And I think that will fit nicely with the theme of our character. So let's add it to the sheet. Okay, so for being half orc, we get a base walking speed of 30 feet. So we can add that in the speed. We also get some abilities. So first we get dark vision. And dark vision will allow us to see in dark and dim conditions. It's really useful in D&D as combat varies, like the environment varies a lot, so you could be fighting in caves, in the night, and I just think it's a really useful skill to have. We also get menacing. And with menacing, we gain proficiency in the intimidation skill. We'll come back to that once we get to the ability and skill section. We also get relentless endurance. And with relentless endurance, if we ever fall or are reduced to 0 hit points, and we aren't killed outright, which I'll explain later on, instead of going to 0 HP, you'll go to 1 HP. So you won't be out of the fight. You'll still be at 1 HP, but you won't be down. And then this feature can only be used once every long rest. So keep that in mind. We also get savage attacks. And with savage attacks, when we get a critical hit with a melee weapon attack, which a critical is when you roll the d20, you get a natural 20. If I can find it. Here it is. When you roll and it lands on 20, that's a natural 20 and is a critical hit. And when we do that, we can roll one of the weapon's damage dice an additional time and add it to the extra damage of the critical hit. So with the critical hit, you usually damage the double. You double the damage dice that you roll. And with this ability, we can basically add another hit dice onto the already doubled hit dice, which is pretty useful. And lastly, we get some languages, which we will write down those down in the proficiency section. So as a half orc, we can speak, read, and write Common and Orc. This is what our sheet looks like right now. I forgot to add the half-orc race here. Okay. Added our languages and some more abilities and our speed. Now, let's fill in our abilities. There's a few different ways we could fill in the ability section. We could rely on RNG, but to keep it simple today, we're just going to be using what's called standard array. And with standard array, we are given a 15, 14, 13, 10, 12, and 8. And we'll just assign those numbers to an ability. Okay, and these are our abilities. We have strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Strength measures our physical capabilities. Dexterity is how we can react. Constitution is pretty much our I want to say like will to live. It's what gives us health and stuff. Intelligence is our book smarts, how well we remember stuff. Wisdom is the ability to, it's more like our street smarts, different from intelligence. And charisma is how we interact. It drives those skills. Okay, since we are making a barbarian, we want our strength and constitution to be our priority abilities. So let's assign 15 to strength. Okay, we've used that number, so now we only have a 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. And I'll explain what the numbers mean here in a minute. We're going to put 14 on Constitution. Okay. Since our character is not going to be very smart, I will basically dump our intelligence by putting the lowest number there. So we'll put 8 in intelligence, and 10 in wisdom. Okay, and we kind of want our character to have good reflexes, so let's put 13 in dexterity, which leaves us 12 for charisma. All right, we've assigned those. And these numbers tells us what our modifiers are. And the modifiers will go in the big boxes. And our modifiers for our abilities is what we add to our rolls whenever we make a roll. For instance, if we need to make a strength roll, we'll roll the d20 and then we'll add whatever our modifier is in the big box. So, but before we get our modifiers, we actually need to update some of the boxes because our race, half-orc, gives us a bonus. So for being half orc, we get a +2 to strength. So instead of being 15, it is now a 17. And then we also get a +1 bonus to our constitution. So instead of being 14, it is now 15. All right. Now that we have our scores, we can get our modifiers, and we can do that by using a chart. There's a D&D chart. All right, here's the chart. So basically, whatever score we have for the ability, it tells us what modifier we get. So if we have for instance, a 1 score, we'll get a -5 modifier. Luckily, we don't have any of that because that would be pretty bad. So for instance, since our strength is a 17, that will get a +3. And since our constitution is a 15, that'll get a +2, and so on for the rest of our abilities. Okay, we've established that our strength gets a +3 for being 17, so we'll go ahead and add +3 to the strength. Our dexterity is a 13, and a 13 will give us a +1. Constitution, we've established, is a +2. Our intelligence, which is an 8, actually gives us a -1. So whenever we need to make an intelligence roll, we'll roll our d20 and then actually subtract 1 from that. So that's why we called it our dump stat, because we're not really going for intelligence with this build. So that does harm us by making us have -1, but fits the character. Okay, our wisdom is a 10, and that will give us a +0. So with that, whenever we make a roll, whatever we roll is what we get. We don't add anything or subtract anything. And then finally our charisma is a 12, which is a +1. Okay. All right, we have our modifiers, but there's still a few things we need to do before we start with this, our skills. First, let's get our proficiency bonus. So at level 1, our proficiency bonus is a +2, and it increases every 4 levels. With the proficiency bonus, it will let us add this number, so right now +2, to any skill or saving throw in which we are proficient in, which means in which we are trained or excel in. And how we know what we are proficient in is if these bubbles are filled. Right now we don't have any filled, but we'll get there in just a minute. Before we can find what we're proficient in, let's go ahead and get our background. Okay, so there are 16 backgrounds in the player handbook, and I'll link to more info on those down below. For our character, let's pick the folk hero background. And this background reads, you come from a humble social rank, but you are destined for much more. Already the people of your home village regard you as their champion, and your destiny calls you to stand against the tyrants and monsters that threaten the common folk everywhere. I think this will work well with our character. We can fit that in to his background. He can be very honorable, maybe not the smartest, but he'll always do what's right and what's best. We get a few things with this background as well. Okay, with this background, we get some proficiencies. So we are proficient in one type of artisan's tools, and land vehicles. Along with those proficiencies, we also get some starting equipment. So we will get a set of artisan's tools to start with, and I'm just going to pick, to keep it simple, just cook's utensils. There's a few different sets available to choose from. Okay. We also get a shovel, an iron pot, a set of common clothes, and a pouch of 10 gold pieces, which we'll put in the gold piece section right here, 10. Along with the equipment proficiencies, we also get a feature, which we'll put here. I'll just put folk hero to know it's our background feature. And the feature is called rustic hospitality. This feature reads, since you come from the ranks of the common folk, you fit in among them with ease. You can find a place to hide, rest, or recuperate among other commoners, unless you have shown yourself to be a danger to them. They will shield you from the law or anyone else searching for you, though they will not risk their lives for you, which I feel like this is a pretty useful feature. Okay, and that is all we get from the folk hero background. So far we've got our class, race, background, which I need to update up here. We've got our modifiers for our abilities, our proficiencies in languages, and our starting equipment, as well as our abilities and features. Alright, now that we have our class, race, and background, we can finally get our proficiencies. So, if you recall, our half-orc race gave us the menacing ability or feature, which gives us intimidation, which gives us proficiency in intimidation. So we can fill in that bubble, right? Like so. Our background also gives us proficiency in animal handling and survival. So let's fill in those, like so. Okay. And then for being a barbarian, we are proficient in strength and constitution. So we can fill those in up here. And we get to choose 2 proficiencies from animal handling, athletics, intimidation, nature, perception, and survival. We're already proficient in animal handling, intimidation, and survival, so we can choose 2 from athletics, nature, and perception. I think athletics would be very good for us. And I'm going to go ahead and pick perception. So we'll fill that in. All right. We now have our proficiencies in strength, constitution, animal handling, athletics, intimidation, perception, and survival. Now we can fill in our modifiers for our skills and saving throws. And to do this, we will just add the modifier next to the corresponding skill and ability. And if we are proficient, then add the proficiency bonus up here. So for strength, the modifier is +3 and the bubble is filled in, so we are proficient. So that will get a +5. Dexterity will just get a +1. Constitution is +2, but we are proficient, so we'll get a +4. Intelligence is a -1. Wisdom is a 0. Charisma is a +1. And with the saving throws, those could be really anything that requires those set of abilities. Like if you want to, for instance, break down a door, the dungeon master might tell you to make a strength saving throw or a strength check. So you'll just roll a d20. That was a 7. Not too good, but since we have a +5 to strength, that 7 becomes a 12. So the outcome will be based on 12. For intelligence, since it's -1, whatever we roll, 11, we'll get -1. So our 11 is now a 10. Okay, we'll do the same thing for the skills now. So each skill belongs to an ability denoted by what's in the parentheses. For example, acrobat belongs to the dexterity ability, since dex is in parentheses. Animal handling belongs to wisdom, so on and so forth. So those will get those abilities modifiers. So let's add that now. Okay. So acrobatics is dexterity. It will get +1. Animal handling is wisdom. We'll get +0, but we are proficient, so +2. Arcana, -1. Athletics is 5. Deception is +1. History, -1. Insight, 0. Intimidation, +1. +2, so +3. Investigation, -1. Medicine, 0. Nature, -1. Perception, 0 +2. Performance, +1. Persuasion, +1. Religion, -1. Sleight of hand +1, stealth +1, and survival we'll get 0 + 2, so +2. Alright. We now have our modifiers for our skills. So whenever we need to make a skill check, for instance, if we're trying to intimidate an enemy and the DM tells us to make an intimidation check, we'll roll our d20, 5, and add our modifier, which is +3, so which makes it an 8. With that roll, the enemy probably won't be too scared of us, but that's the fun of rolling dice and RNG. While we're here, you can also get our passive perception, which is 10 plus our wisdom modifier. And if we are proficient in perception, which we are, then we all also add our proficiency. So 10 plus 0 plus 2 is 12. And for our passive perception, we won't roll for this. Sometimes, like for instance, if we're just walking down a road, a DM will use our passive perception to see if we notice something, like in the bushes. But usually the DM doesn't tell us what the passive perception is for. So that's really a tool for them. Okay, we're done with this section. We have our abilities and modifiers, equipment, proficiencies, features, and let's move on to the combat. We're gonna skip inspiration. Not everyone uses inspiration, and we're not gonna worry about it today. Okay, so up here we have armor class and initiative. Our initiative is our dexterity mod, so +1. So we'll add that here. Initiative is basically for whenever combat starts, everyone involved in the combat will roll a d20, add our mod, and then this determines the order of combat basically and who goes first in the turns. So let's say me and 2 other monsters get into combat. We'll each roll initiative. We'll say they got a 5, the other monster got a 9, and we'll say our initiative is 7 plus 1, which makes it an 8. So the order of combat will go monster number 2, who got a 9, and then I will go next, and then the first monster will go last since they got a 5. Okay. Next, we'll get our AC, our armor class. An armor class is basically what an enemy has to roll on their attack roll in order to hit us. So since, if you recall, we have the unarmored defense. So while we're not wearing heavy armor, I believe, we get a base 10 plus our dex mod plus our constitution modifier, which is 2 plus 1 is 3 plus 10. So our AC is 13. So, whenever an enemy wants to attack us, let's say trying to hit us with a sword, they will roll their d20. They got an 11. And if their roll meets or beats our AC, so if it's greater than or equal to our 13, they will hit us and then they'll be able to roll damage. Since they rolled an 11, they don't hit us, and then that's their action for their turn, basically. So, yeah. We can also get our hit points. So our hit point maximum at first level is 12 plus our constitution modifier, which is 2. So at level 1 we have 14 hit points. And our current hit points, that's exactly what it says, what it means, is our current hit points. What I like to do is put our current maximum, because our health will go up as we level up, but I like to put the current health like that. Then whenever I lose health, I'll just put what I have here, just so I know I'm like 10 out of 14 health. That's just what I like to do. Temporary hit points, we get that through spells or abilities, which adds to our current health, and it only lasts for a certain duration. We don't have any right now, obviously, so we'll leave that blank. Our hit dice is, we get 1 d12, and a d12 is, let's see, here's a d12. We get 1 d12 per level, so we get 1 hit dice per level, 1 d12 per level, and since we're only level 1 right now, the total is only 1. Once we level up, we'll keep the 1 d12 here, and we'll just change the total to 2. But that's when we level up. Right now it's 1. And hit dice, we can expend hit dice during short rest, and they give us health back. So let's say we just got done with the battle and I'm at 8 HP. And after the battle ends, instead of taking a long rest, which is at least 8 hours, which would restore our health to full, we're going to take a short rest, which is usually about an hour. And I'm going to choose to spend my hit dice, my 1d12, to gain health back. So what I'll do is I'll roll the dice. Looks like it's a 2. So that's how much health I will get back. So now I'm at 10. And now this is gone. And so if we take another short rest, I won't have that, so I won't be able to regain my health. And we get our hit dice back after a long rest. So keep that in mind. Death saves, that's for when we reach 0 HP. We have to start rolling death saves. So once we reach 0, on our next turns, we roll a d20. If you roll a 10 or higher, that's a success, and you'll mark success here. If you roll below a 10, that's a failure. You'll fill in one bubble of the failure. Once you reach 3 fails, you just die. And if you reach 3 successes, you become stable. You're not back up and ready to fight. You're just not under the threat of immediate death. So you're still knocked down, but yeah. And then also an important note on that is if you roll a nat 1, which is just a 1, that counts as 2 fails automatic. So, and the same thing goes for a nat 20. Roll a nat 20, that's 2 successes. So that is that. So far, this is what it's looking like. Finished our abilities, combat area, features, equipment, proficiencies. Now we're gonna work on our attacks. So in this section is where we write what attacks we have and how much damage they do. And for this part, I'll be referring to the D&D weapon chart, and I'll link that down below. So first we have a great axe, so we'll write that here. And the great axe, I'll also write it down here just so we can write some notes about it. So the great axe is a martial weapon. That's important to note, which I'll get to later. And it's also two-handed, meaning in order to use it, we have to use 2 hands in order for it to be useful to us. Our hand axe is a simple weapon, and it can also be thrown. Now, if we choose to throw it, that would be a ranged attack as opposed to melee, so some things will be different there. Javelins we also have. And they are a simple weapon. And like the hand axe, we can choose to throw it or choose to stab. Okay, now we can fill in here. We have our great axe, hand axe, and javelin. Okay, our attack bonus. So with the attack bonus, that is what we add to our attack roll. Remember, the attack roll is when we want to attack someone. So when we want to attack someone, we'll roll a d20, and if it meets or beats their AC, then we will roll damage dice. So for the great axe, the attack bonus is we can add strength or we'll add our strength to it. So that's +3. And if you recall from our proficiencies, we're proficient in martial and simple weapons, which is good for us because all of our weapons are martial and simple. So we'll add our strength +3. Since we're proficient, we'll add our proficiency, giving us a +5 attack bonus. So let's say an enemy has a 11 AC and we want to attack them with our great axe. We'll roll the attack dice, d20. We got a 7. Normally that wouldn't hit, but since we have a +5 to attack bonus, attack roll, that becomes a 12. That meets and beats the 11, so we hit them, and then we can roll damage to them, which we'll get to next. So, according to the weapons chart of D&D, the Great Axe does 1d12 slashing damage. So we'll put 1d12 slashing. And the damage type is important because some enemies will have resistance to certain damage types. So our enemy could be resistant to slashing, which means they'll only take half of the damage we deal to them. Or some enemies could also be like more susceptible to that damage type, which means they'll take double the damage we deal to them. So make sure to write down the damage type. So back to our example, since we hit the enemy because we got a 12, we can now roll damage to them, which is our d12. Here it is. So we'll roll damage, and that's 9 damage that they took. And then that will basically be our action. If we don't have anything else to do, our turn will end. Let's go ahead and get the attack bonus and damage dice and damage type of the others. So hand axe, we'll add our strength, and we're proficient. So +5, same thing with javelins, +5. On the weapon chart, hand axes do 1d6 slashing, so not as much as the great axe. But you also don't need 2 hands in order to make the attack. Javelins do 1d6 piercing. So yeah, that is pretty much it for the attack section. You can also put like your spells here if you wanted to. Personally, I think it's better to have that on a separate sheet because you have to keep track of spell slots, spells, what they do, all of that. But our barbarian doesn't have any spells, so we won't worry about that. Okay, we finished all of the more information stuff, really what our character can do. Now all that we have left is what our character is like and more of the creativity part of the character creation. Let's go ahead and get a name. For the name, let's go with something orcish. So let's go with Drock. I think that's a good orc name. And since he's a folk hero, champion of our people, let's go ahead and give him a title. We'll make him the Grand. Drock the Grand. I think that fits well with him. Okay, for our alignment, I won't get too much into alignment as it's not really used anymore in the newer version of D&D, but since it's still on the sheet, we'll go ahead and do it. We'll make him chaotic. Chaotic good. As opposed to the lawful or neutral alignments. And we'll do this because he won't have much regard or knowledge, for that matter, of the law. Him being not the smartest. So he'll be chaotic in that sense. But he'll be good because he'll be very honorable and he's a champion to the people. So he'll do the right things. And then all that's left is the personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws. And with these, you can get really creative. Put your own quirks to them, special things. For the sake of time and this video, I'm just going to roll from the Folk Hero background charts, which is another thing to mention. The backgrounds also allow for personality types and stuff. So for our personality trait, it is saying to roll a d8. So let's get a d8, and we got a 7. So I misused long words in an attempt to sound smarter. Alright, I'll just put outcome 7. So that is one of our personality traits. I misuse long words in an attempt to sound smarter. For ideals, we'll roll a d6, just a regular die. Got 1. Respect. People deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. Okay, and that goes with our good alignment, so I was pretty lucky. For bond, another d6. Okay, we got a 3. So for our bond, a proud noble once gave me a horrible beating, and I will take my revenge on any bully I encounter. Okay. And then lastly, what is our flaw? So that's another d6. Got a 4. I have a weakness for the vices of the city, especially hard drink. Okay. Again, these are just like quick way to do it, but feel free to really make your character how you want it. Okay. Let's take one final look at our completed. Up here we have our name, our experience points, Our class, Barbarian, and our level 1. Our race, Half-Orc. Our alignment, Chaotic Good. Our background, Folk Hero. Over here we have our character name, Drock the Grand. Over here we have our personality, ideals, bonds, and flaws. Here we have our abilities, our saving throws, and our skills with our modifiers added to them. Here we have our armor class, initiative, speed, and hit points. Here we have our equipment, our proficiencies and languages, our features, and here we have our attacks. And just like that, our character is now ready to embark on a daring D&D adventure. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure to check out the linked websites for more information below the video on my resources page. Thank you.